Morning and welcome to Sean's Thoughts. Right now I'm sitting in a parking lot under this beautiful morning sun and I'm sharing my thoughts with you, whomever you are. And I say whomever you are because quite honestly I'm uncertain of who you are and where you are. This morning I had the insightful opportunity, we'll call it, to read different comments and posts about, the situations that we're going through and everyone's individual perspectives of it. I belong to a community called UNN, and there was an interesting post this morning that I read from the, I guess you could say, leader of United News Network. And she was talking about how, there's, I don't really know how to say what she was talking about because, quite honestly, after reading it, I read through the comments and I read through, the confusion and the uncertainty and essentially the frustration at all that's happening right now. See, many people, as I've mentioned before, we're all on our own different paths. We're on different trajectories, and a lot of times these paths will intercede and interconnect and cross over one another, sometimes after the other person's already passed that area. You can kind of imagine it as you are walking across your own path and then you cross a path that is empty, yet there's still a fragment of that person's energy, or perhaps, you can even imagine it as litter, that they perhaps dropped something by accident or on purpose, whatever the reason is. And as you cross that path, perhaps you pick that up. You pick up that piece of litter, you pick up that piece of energy or whatever it is that's still echoing from that person's presence before. Yeah, so I've had a lot of time this morning to contemplate things and to actually think about the situation that we're in. See, I've always said that, the Savior is yourself. The one we've been waiting for is ourself, but yet that opens us up to so many other possibilities. So many possibilities of what true nature and true reality is. See, I've been on a course, a trajectory to discover what true reality is. So many different people, from Elon Musk to other scientists that I suddenly can't remember their names, but questioning what base reality is. See, it's been shown ever since the news articles came about Google finding that there was code in the air, that there is definitely a layer of false reality that's been superimposed upon our reality. And I wonder how many of us are even closer to base reality than I. One of my biggest challenges in my life is trying to discern through experience as well as intuition what is real, who is real, and who is not. And I know that listening to what I just said, coming out of the cold of not realizing that there's anything wrong with our world right now, and there's a lot of people who are believing that there isn't, that there's going to be a turning point where everything's going to go back to normal. And then the question becomes, what is normal? If I look back on my reality for the last 4 decades or more, I'll see that things have never been normal. They've always been constantly changing, every year changing, and yet somehow other people feel that things got back to normal and then shifted away. And yet when I look upon it, I see that things never went back to the way they were the previous year. They always seem to evolve and change, and actually I was very open and ready for that. I understand that to be truly in the present moment of now is to have the world forever changing around us, and for us to be able to be comfortable with that. It's like if you were to go whitewater rafting and you're on the boat and you're paddling, whether you're with yourself or with others, if you are fighting against the current, you essentially resist and possibly go into the water. And yet, if you go with the current and you flow with the current, actually, and you paddle in sync and in alignment, and you are in alignment with your intuition, and you just allow the river to take you and to paddle and to make those minor course adjustments, then you're going to get through to the other end of the river. And in a sense, that's what we're experiencing now, is when we resist what is happening, when we fight against it, when we struggle. It's like the river, the whitewater raft rivers, and it's going to pull us in its direction. And if we resist that, then that's when we're going to flip. Now, I'll segue back to something that I was talking about before. See, Sunny, that's her name, she had put it up that we're not here to save anyone. And yet, I completely agree with that we're not here. We're here to save ourselves, first of all, so we are here to save someone. But more importantly, we are here to share this experience with one another. See, I've come to the understanding that Source, that what we are is a perspective of Source, that Source is experiencing our world through us. And so therefore we are contributing to the whole. And since we are here to essentially witness, learn, and perhaps save ourselves, as I said, we are here for a very specific reason. And yet, when I say we, I'm uncertain of who we is. Not just you who's listening to me, but like I said, my biggest concern is who in my life is authentic, real, and true. And when I mean in my life, I mean the people that I interact with, regardless if it's online or in the 3D world, who is real. That's a pressing concern, I guess you could say, of mine, because I desire truth. I desire authenticity. I desire love and connection and reunification and restoration of the world in which I'm a part of. And yet I'm led to believe, and honestly, I do have a sneaking suspicion that there are people that are fake in my life. Not just fake in the sense that they don't own up to their authentic self, that they lack the ability to hold themselves accountable. Those are things that even I had to learn. But I mean fake in that they truly perhaps don't even exist on the same level. That they are avatars walking around and pretending to be whomever they are pretending to be. I've heard in the GIA reports that there are actual, we'll call them holograms, kind of like what I was talking about before, photonic life, walking around, and they bleed and they laugh and they cry, and they might even believe everything that they are to be real, and yet they are artificial and unorganic. There was a movie that I watched one time a long time ago, and it was a movie about these alien invaders who were coming to invade a planet of beings, of Homo sapiens. And there was somewhat of a war. But nonetheless, the end of the movie, they had found these beings that they were themselves the androids or the inorganic beings, and that the aliens, or the so-called aliens that were invading, that they were actually the organic Homo sapiens returning back to their planet that they were forced out of because of these inorganic androids. And these inorganic androids had come to a point in their civilization where they had completely forgotten, or perhaps been programmed to no longer remember, that they were themselves not human or not Homo sapien. And so it kind of exemplifies the idea of the nature of our reality, of what our true reality is. In the TV series Westworld, in season 3 or 4 or something like that, there was essentially a reboot of the world, and they had gotten to the point where artificial beings were actually writing the scripts for the organic beings within their communities. That there was a group of script writers who would actually write the scripts out for the organic beings that lived in there. And there was one organic being that actually discovered that his life was being scripted by one of these artificial beings, the main character in the story, or at least one of the main characters in the story of Westworld, and that she herself didn't even realize until after she was confronted that she was actually creating this organic being's life to be very melodramatic and negative and painful in a sense. And all of these different shows open our minds up to the awareness that the reality is not what we perceive it to be. See, reality is, first of all, how we individually perceive it for ourselves. And yet that's not a true account of what reality truly is, especially when there's external forces that are playing or pushing or influencing how we perceive everything. I've come to the understanding that much of what we see, much of what we experience is fabricated, part of the illusion. It's a construct of beings who would prefer us to be unaware of what truth is. And that's why it appears that there's so many different theories out there, is because truth is pushing its way towards us. And yet, in order to avoid that, the ones who once controlled the world, they interject or add so much confusion in. So even though they may spit partial truths in the lyrics or scripts of the movies that we watch, they add so much confusion and distortion, and then they pay Hollywood people, or even now influencers on different platforms, in order to completely mix up what truth and the lie is. And so back to what I was saying before, when we talk about, everything being up to me, it's up to me, yes. It's up to you, yes. But it's also up to us to come together in a much better form and fashion than we have been. There's still distortions, there's still missing pieces of the puzzle that are preventing us from uniting, from us from coming together. And I feel uncertain of where these agendas originate from. I often sometimes feel, am I alone in this reality that I live? Is everyone around me an avatar? Am I in my own personal holodeck where external forces are simply programming the situation to constantly throw me in the wrong direction? Or is this holodeck experience the learning that I require in order to break free of the matrix? And then you listening to this, are you yourselves, are you in the same situation as I? And that the only, essentially, the connection between us is the audios or the videos or the information that flows from one phone or computer to another. I would truly love, absolutely love to know who is in my life that is there to support and strengthen me, and then who in my life is just an operative or an avatar that's been placed there in order to essentially keep me from being me, from remembering who I am. See, that's what she had left. When I say she, I mean Sunny. That's what Sunny and many other people have ended comments with, is to remember who we are. Individually, to remember who we are. For me to remember, for you to remember who you are, for all of us to remember who we are. And what I truly do believe, I have faith that we are creators. We are creators, that we're originally perhaps brought here, who existed here to create, to co-create with Source. And that's why I often mention on my videos that these are co-creations, because I definitely feel guided when I create a lot of these experiences and images that I put up for you to watch. My recent experiences called Moving Portraits definitely exemplifies that. I look forward to just standing in front of this experience and just absorbing the feeling. And I've often made it very apparent when I'm selecting the music to make it so that the music can repeat. So if you do happen to watch any of my moving portrait videos, they're 1 minute long currently. And I recommend highly that you put it on a loop so that you keep intensifying the experience, because the music that I selected for those frames, well, experimental, is definitely in alignment with the story or the visual storytelling, the narrative that I'm sharing with the audience when you experience it. And yet, like I said, even that is artificial because it's a digital recreation of an experience that I myself had. Just taking a moment to slow down. It's a beautiful day out. It's amazing how we can affect the weather. Yesterday I was walking around after doing my audio, and see, before I had started the audio that I did yesterday, it was very cloudy, and there was this tree that I was walking by that I had taken a frame of previously, and the sky was very still dark and gloomy. And although I love rain and I love overcasted white skies, I questioned, or I asked the universe essentially to part the sky and to give me blue sky with the sun above that tree. And when I came back, as I was being guided to return after doing that podcast yesterday, the sky was parted and the sun was out right above the tree. And I had originally started recording a little bit, and yet I didn't feel I was capturing what I truly wished to capture. So I started walking on, and amazingly enough, I got 3-4 meters away and the sun started to intensify its heat upon me. So I returned back to it and I was able to capture this beautiful frame, and you can see it right here as I'll link it in the video right now. And I turned it into a moving portrait. And what's, I guess, unique about this is that the frame constantly moves. And this is how I originally started off my do no thing videos before I got tripods and set the camera up to be still and such and capture that perfect frame. I used to hold the video camera, and of course, holding the video camera, you've got movement and you've got wind and you've got the body trembling. And actually in this one, for a solid 3 minutes, I froze myself to do no thing while I was trying to record this video high above my head. And that's definitely an interesting pose. I wonder often how many people observe me filming sometimes, and I wonder what's going on in their heads. And of course, that's if they're even, or you're even, or we're even real and such. Yeah, so many thoughts that I have, and I truly do wish to know more truth. I essentially work towards truth seeking, discovering what reality actually is, because so much of what goes on in my world doesn't make any sense at all. And if it does make sense, I have a story, and if I tell people why that happens, they're just imagining that I'm giving excuses or I'm making things up, or I'm finding issues where there are no issues. See, one of the, we'll call it, things that I've imagined is in my town, my city, there is an awful lot of normal stuff not being done, meaning the sidewalks are essentially shifting, and parts of the sidewalks are lifting up, and people are, or whoever is looking after that, are shaving the sidewalks, or there's missing trees by the side of the road and they've even covered up those tree areas. And actually there's a lot of missing trees and missing signs, showing me, of course, that people are having accidents at a higher rate and the city's unable to mend it and fix it. And yet there is so many issues with the sidewalks and the roads, and yet they are putting up bike lanes with lots of new signage. There's an extensive amount of no parking signs put in places that have no reason to have no parking signs. And there's so much energy being spent on almost pointless stuff. Yes, it has a purpose, like you're making a bike lane so the bike lane people can go, but then you're adding more signs and more speed bumps and more signs again, and then deflectors and reflectors and whatever. Anyways, you're essentially adding things that don't really matter when there is so much that does matter. Means potholes in the road matter more importantly than adding a new bike lane in anywhere, or having bike lanes that actually obstruct the traffic. Like there's one on 203rd near in Maple Ridge where the bike lane's actually a traffic hazard going down the entire road. It forces people not to be able to turn right sometimes. And anyways, it's really, really interesting how we're so unfocused. But yet I can tell you a story that I understand that the reason why a lot of these projects are being done is because the people that are profiting off of them, that have always profited off of things like this, the contracts and the such for road improvement or repaving roads with crap that the materials aren't really effective and they don't last long, just so that they can keep getting that contract every year. Like even the fact that we use salt on sidewalks in order to prevent frost so that people don't slip. And many people are unaware that when you put water on salt, you create an exothermic reaction. What that means is the salt releases heat and causes erosion. So when we put salt all over wherever it is that we're putting it over, we're actually eroding the concrete or the materials around us. And, you know, the exothermic reaction is wonderful because, you know, you're warming up the frost. But often there is no frost. Often it's just a cold weather out and people are on an automated progress in order to drop salt on the ground and then eroding the actual concrete wherever it is around us as well. And then, of course, those companies that are relying on contracts from the city, they come in and they do their repavement and they make their money, and whoever's on the top is making a cut off the top. And that's essentially how I see a lot of our world working. See, I see people that own signs as part of the problem. And actually, I guess during the 2021 time, I had actually heard that a brother of Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, that he actually owned the company that made the signs that they put up everywhere. So he was essentially profiting from making the signs. So the more signs that it was required by bylaws that stores had in their store and wherever else, in schools and other public buildings, that there was a family member that was profiting. And of course, I'm uncertain of whether or not this was true because, you know, so much of the news media that we're out there that we're listening to is essentially created as propaganda to create us to have those emotions of distrust, of anger, of frustration. And even when things aren't happening, they're made to appear as if they're happening. And yet when I look out into my own world and I see us struggling with homelessness. I see them tearing down houses in order to leave vacant lots with these signs in front of them saying that there is some sort of development and let's go and vote on that development and see whether the community loves it or not. And those things are sitting there for 2-3 years and the houses are missing, and yet we have an issue with homelessness, overpricing. I can definitely see that whoever's leading our communities is leading us into the ground. And then, while at the same time, a large amassing of no parking signs, brand new ones, and you can see how they're all beautifully clean being put up in so many different areas. I want to do a video one day to show you the amazing insanity of these signs. We have signs, no parking signs, that say, do not park in front of a driveway. Or they say, do not park on the side of the driveway, but you can park in front of the driveway. Like, we actually have that. We actually have signs that tell you you can park in front of the entrance to an alleyway. Or it's amazing of how they've just, and I say they, I mean whoever actually pays for, puts the contract out, or the actual contractor themselves. But it's as if they drove around just imagining all the different places that just simply didn't have a sign that said no parking, that then they wanted to put a no parking. Like, we have signs, and I know I'm going off on this because this has actually been one of the things that I would choose to do the first, should I ever move into a position of, leadership, is to remove the senseless no parking signs, telling people that they can park here but they can't park there when there's absolutely no reason to. Like, we even have no parking signs by the side of the single lane roads. It means you only can go forward or backward. There's only 2 lanes, forward and backward. There is no bike lane, and yet we have no parking signs there as well. And I truly do see that as someone in authority who's making money off of those signs, and that being the little bit that's left in order to do contracts in the city coffers. And yet that's what they're spending the money on, is bike lanes and no parking signs. And of course, hurting the homelessness situation from one corner to the other corner. That's definitely done as well. But anyways, that's just me on a rant, and it still comes down to who in our reality is real. Who in our reality is an authentic Homo sapien who is essentially looking for a way out of this matrix that we're so-called stuck in. And one of the most powerful ending messages of a GIA report that I've ever heard was when Kim said that it's healing. It's healing that we need to do. It's healing that will allow us to step out, to break free, to remove ourselves, to save ourselves. It's healing. And I've often talked about a modality called TFT, which is called thought field therapy. Thought field therapy. It's an amazing modality created or perhaps recreated by Dr. Callahan, and it allows for us to release the traumas, the tethers, the bindings that are connected from us, from our field, to something else. Whether that is an entity, a being, a matrix, a computer program, traumas, past life issues, whatever it is, to break free of that. So like a balloon, we can float into the sky. But then the reality of it comes back to me is, am I saying this to a whole bunch of holographic projections? Or am I simply saying this to myself only? Am I the only one here? Because when I walk around and I talk to people in my own city, my own family, my so-called once friends, when I say things to them, many people have no understanding or no ability to perhaps even see some of the things that I see. And it leads me to believe or to question, essentially, how much of the world is real. And so I truly, truly do look forward to discovering and seeking the truth of our reality, the truth of who we are and what we is. And while we are here to experience, perhaps, witness this transition, learn a few things, and come out the other end as more powerful creators, how many of us are coming out the other end? And that's not in a negative way because, you know, if you think about it, as you move through your life, there are people that come and go from your life. There's people that were once part of our lives that played an important, phenomenal, passionate, powerful role, such as significant others and children and parents and best friends of the youth and such. But when we move through life, a lot of these people shift out of our reality, and while they may or may not be in other places, in our reality, they no longer exist. And many times we don't even go back to having them actually physically within our reality, that we move forward on adventures that are so dynamic and mammoth-sized that there's new people to fill our lives. And so it's not necessarily a tragic issue or a concern when people fall out of our lives, because they are on their own paths. And they have their own litter to drop and to collect, and their lessons to build and strengthen and grow from. And perhaps we're meant to never cross paths again. Anyways, that's a morbid point to drop it on, but I'm going to leave it right there. And, you know, definitely do some contemplation and self-reflection, and I'm going to be doing a lot of that, and I'm going to be creating a lot more of my moving portraits, and I hope that you will come in and enjoy the playlist. And I'll leave it right at the end of this video, because the more beauty that we add to our lives, the more love that we feel within ourselves, the stronger the urge to create that we allow to be expressed from our fingers, from our thoughts, from our hearts. I completely agree. We will help ourselves rid ourselves of this matrix, of this system of constructs that has been meant and invented essentially by a group of beings that wanted to control everything. And yet they've never been able to fully control the Homo sapiens. And they are on their way out, and we are on our rise up. So thank you so much for sharing your attention and your consideration and kindness and support with me. And I look forward to sharing more as I discover more, because through truth is how we find the path forward. So much love. Enjoy this beautiful sun for the next 30 seconds, and thank you.